Thank you so much for joining me today. So Jennifer and I are back together to do another conversation, but this time we're going to continue along the lines of consciousness raising, really covering a broad swath of really what consciousness is in its expansive state. So we're going to give some real-time examples of what we're talking about, and then we're going to really explore, as she and I usually do, kind of all areas of this topic. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today, but we're going to, with respect to consciousness, we're going to talk about also about multi-locating, which this is a really interesting part of the video, I think. And again, real-time examples that you're going to get to hear about. How consciousness is everywhere. We just swim in it, basically. How you can tune your instrument, your vessel, your body, and then also how we can refine time and redefine time. We're going to also cover unified consciousness. We've talked a little bit about that in the past, but we're going to hit on some of this again. Again, this ties to some of the videos we've done in the past, but it's more expansive. We're also going to explore consciousness through what our words and thoughts can offer. So we're really taking a good hard look at what's going on now, okay, because this is how it always starts out, right? We talk about, hey, how you been? What's been going on with you? And then she launches in and I launch in, and then we end up with a topic, and today it's everything consciousness. So I hope you enjoy this today, and thanks so much for joining me. I'm Carolyn. I'm a channel, I'm a distance energy healer, and I'm a spiritual awakening mentor. And I offer all these videos, whether they are Lightkeeper channels from the angelic group that I channel, whether it's me doing energy updates on a regular basis, or Jennifer, Roxanne, anybody else and I getting together and channeling information for your awakening and ascension journey. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new to my channel, again, thank you for joining me today. You'll see down below in the description box a link that will take you to a video on how to create flow in your body for health and wellness. And I talk a lot about how important it is to set the stage to allow flow in our journey. So flow will open up through you really doing your self-care work. So anyway, that is an opportunity to get a free video on how to create flow in your body for health and wellness. And then what it does, most importantly, I think, is it sends you over to join my email list. Now, my email list is used to send you a weekly channeled message from the Light Keepers to support you in your ascension and awakening and life journey. So on the Friday before the week coming up, you're going to get a channeled message with some of my commentary, my channeled commentary, and then that will support you then for the week coming up. I don't do a lot of promotional stuff. That's just not me. So I use that as my way to give you more free content. And if you do want to work with me, I have all my information below. So we'll talk about that at the end, but I do offer channeled messages in all different kinds of forms, as well as distance energy healing. So I'm here to help you as well individually, as well as collectively through this free content. Okay, so before I get going, I want to make a couple other comments about things that are going on now presently. The video with Jennifer and myself is not time sensitive. It does talk about what's going on now, but that's within not just today, it's within these weeks we have right now, okay, coming up. But since this is the 6th of September, I just want to tell you what we have coming up, which you will already be reflective of when you listen to this. But it's always good to be reflective of this too, because you can kind of look back and go, oh, that's why this happened to me. Oh, I forgot that we had the full moon on the 10th of September. And then guess what? We had the 9/9 portal, the step up, remember? So right within that day's period of time, and remember, energy starts before and after, continues after these events, just like with the full moon and the new moon and all of our eclipses and all these fun things we have in the steps up, okay? When I talk about the steps up, these are the 8/8, 9/9, 10/10, 11/11, 12/12, all right? Which in the last video, or one of the last videos, they talked about how really from 8/8 on, it's more, okay, they just said ramping up, more of a ramping up. So each of these steps up, okay, to the end of the year, which 12/12 and the solstice, you know, are going to be really powerful before we enter 2023. But this is a step up on 9/9. So 9/9, and then we have 9/10. Okay, September 9th, September 10th. September 9th is 9/9. September 10th is the full moon. So we got a lot of energies continuing to lift us up, all right, through this ascension process, through our conscious awareness to be able to become all we can be. So I just want you to know, as we have talked about for quite some time, these steps up, we're going to continue to feel what we've been feeling in the past, and it's going to be accentuated one way or the other, okay? Remember, we've talked about, again, the metaphor is the two groups, right? Kind of the two groups, and everybody's in between, right? Of, are you paying attention to your journey? Are you working the things that are showing up in your journey? Are you following the threads of the things? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you choosing things that serve you versus not serving you? You know, the whole journey of what really spiritual awakening is. And then as we do that, we raise in consciousness, we raise in vibration, and we raise out of all the gunk that we're seeing in our 3D world, right? So not turning a blind eye to the things that are showing up in our journey that we have to work on that are going to accelerate our journey, okay? So as we're continuing to do that, we're getting, with each of these steps, now 9 to 10, 11, 12, 12, we keep rising up, okay? That's their metaphor, those steps up, but we're also getting stretched and pulled, okay? We've talked all about that. I won't go through that again. I just wanted to remind you of what's coming up. And then, guess what? We have the fall equinox. On the heels of these events on the 22nd of September. So the fall, I guess that's the fall equinox in the northern hemisphere. I guess it's the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere. I always want to make sure I remember everybody in the southern hemisphere as well. You guys are going into your spring. We're going into our fall. So anyway, that's what's going on today. I don't know about you guys, but I have... personally, I will say that things have been pretty steady and consistent for me energetically. Within those last couple months, I had some glitches showing up in the last week where I could tell that it felt more like collective energy that I was experiencing. Remember, some of you are going to, and most of us as we become more sensitive, because that's part of this deal, right? As we vibrate higher, we start to become more open, more aware, more sensitive. So you may start feeling more of what's going on in the collective. So remember, again, I won't repeat myself, or this will be a whole nother video, which I've done before, which is got to pull yourself back from that 3D stuff, from all that gunk out there, okay? It's really, really important now, okay? Because that gunk is getting stronger in the sense of it will be stronger to pull you in if you allow it, all right? So both sides, I know this is not going to make sense when I say both sides, old earth, new earth, are getting stronger in that sense, okay? In that pull within that environment. So you got old world spinning nasty stuff. You see it all the time, right? Old world energy spinning. So those who are hanging out, or you step your toe in and you're hanging out in there for a while, you're going to feel it more and more and more, and you're going to like, this does not work for me. But guess what? It's like a vortex. So beware, because you can get sucked in. You know, and I know people who, and you guys do too, and it may be you right now, where momentarily we've gotten pulled back into all of that mucky, icky stuff. We got to remember, we have to be consciously aware of pulling ourselves out and what our habits are, what our disciplines are, and being very, 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 very aware, because it can be pretty quick getting pulled back into those kinds of things. But what's happening over here too in our world, right, of those who are awakening, you know, choosing things that serve us versus don't serve us, you know, that whole awakening journey, this energy is getting more powerful too, right? So we're continuing to elevate and escalate faster and faster. Little things are shifting and changing, and our doors are opening up for us. And remember, the fork in the road, the life you're meant to live is starting to show up. But again, it's in this energy. It's not this energy, right? So, you know, there's a gravitational pull. They just keep saying this. See, because it's magnetic. Remember, they talk about how we're magnetic to the others. Well, they have a pull. I don't want to say they. That energy has a pull on us. The old earth energy also has a pull, because that's what we're used to. We're used to that in one degree or another. So there's still that kind of like, oh, sometimes it's kind of a shiny object, right? No, don't look at it. Keep doing what you're doing over here, because this is much shinier. All right. So anyway, enough of that. Hopefully this helped you get a little sense of where we're at right now in what is, early September 6th. Again, this is all relevant for you. It's all relevant. Just because I filmed it on the 6th, this is all relevant for you. Okay. Because our conversation is a conversation about consciousness in general, what's going on presently, not just a point in time. Additionally, this will assist you in looking back to the full moon, getting ready for the fall equinox, and also reflecting on the 9/9 portal. Okay, so here's your video, and I'll catch up with you in the end. Anyway, real quick, I think I told you the full moon in July.
Yes.
Shifted everything for me. I mean, everything. And I have been on this flow since for 2 months of just consistency. No, like I feel like I'm floating above everything that's gunky.
Right.
Even my own emotions, even the way I handle things. I have, and it's all in kind of what I asked, and plus the work I've done too. And
Yes.
oh my God, I feel it's just continued. It's very hard to put into to words, you know,
Yes.
how this kind of transformation takes place. I mean, you understand, but
Okay.
you can't tell. You can't.
It's hard to explain. It is, and it's funny too. I don't know if you're finding this, but it's hard, but it's easy in a way too. It's difficult to try to find the words to articulate what you're feeling, but actually in this energy, I've noticed too, when I stop trying to find the words the old way, the old way,
Yes.
if I ease and I just relax and I have conversation like this, it starts coming to me as a like conscious stream, right?
Exactly.
Rather than a thought. And it starts flowing very easily. And it's not always super easy for everybody else to understand if they're not there with you, but it's a lot easier to be in the energy without striving for words.
Yes. And you know, you just hit on something that they're connecting me with that they've told me before, is that this is actually, oh, they just said a precursor to the future, because that's it's we move into that just stream of consciousness. You just said the flow, it just opens up, and then things just start, you just start just kind of like, I mean, basically you're just kind of channeling your higher self all the time, ultimately.
Yes, you're right. It's not, and it's not even, doesn't really even feel like a channel as much as I can. I'm a little more sensitive to like energy, so I can actually feel kind of a come in and set in, where I get kind of aligned with my, you know, what we call our higher, but it's just us, right? And it just it changes my feel, right? And then it starts flowing much easier. So it's just like aligning with kind of aligning with different frequencies of your being, or you know, how your being, I should say how your being is in different frequencies, because you're not actually separate in any of those frequencies. You are your entire being, but you have options through frequency. So when you feel like the shifting and stuff, it's not that you're necessarily shifting into another one, right? It's you're shifting into another point of view.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. And you could, you know, the point of view, it's interesting. You can think of the point of view as, because they always talk to me in terms of energy, but the point of view is an energetic point of view, right? So it's like a different layers of point of view, if that makes sense. And it's vibrational. It's vibrational. So yep. And so
and all of those are, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'm saying all of those are so individually dynamic. So you think about having different points of view, right? But even within those points of view, this is wiggling a lot, sorry. Even within those points of view, it's very nuanced inside of each of those. So it's so, and it's not that it's necessarily set that way, and you get in, you go, oh, this is neat, I have this, this, and this. When you're in there, in those different ones, you're also expanding them just by being focused kind of in them. So it's like having like nuances to a personality where you can move through, but they're always, you might bring some from somewhere else into one, and it expands this one's richness to texture, dimension within the dimensional self. So you move into these different ones, and you're bringing kind of sharing almost different things into all of them, even though they are in totality, but it's almost like refining the detail on a painting or a sculpture.
Yes,
right?
yes. Okay, that's a really good metaphor
Hmm.
because if you think about this journey, we're continuing to what I'll say perfect ourselves, right? Like
Sure.
find that real sweet spot. And you know how they
Hmm.
always show me, they show it's the same idea, but they show frequency and vibration, and they show
Hmm.
the subtle difference. Okay, think of this as like 3D, right? So we were here, right? Live in 3D, whatever. And then we start going through awakening and we start moving up here. So we're swimming on top of this, what I'll call 3D experience out of it.
Hmm.
So what
Okay.
they're talking about is how as you the refining, that's what they're talking about. They're
Yes.
talking about like if you're refining, I don't know, olive oil, you're refining anything, you're getting rid of the I don't know, maybe toxins, you're getting rid of the things you don't want in the final product. That's what they're
Yeah.
talking about. And so as you refine yourself, you're leaving that density and you're moving into that higher vibration. And what happens then is you, this is what they're trying to show me what happened to me, is these things are refining out of you, and then you become that more like I've become the last 2 months, this more consistent, they just said consistent, stable, flowing observer you, the where you're not doing these erratic swings, you're not
Yeah.
affected as much by your external environment. So it's they're using the refining process as
Yes.
the way you move into that higher vibration and frequency. And that's this, obviously this is the awakening journey, right? So
Uh-huh. Yes, it is. It's really it's very, I mean, what they say is convoluted, complex, all these words. There is so much going on. Like, you know how sometimes if you see they'll zoom into a cell or a body function at a level like a microscope, and you'll see all these fluids moving and all this stuff acting within each cell, or in different particles or microbes within the body,
mhm.
like a digestive cell, the digestive lining cell. They zoom into it with the microscope, and you're like, wow, there's a lot going on in that tiny
Yeah,
cell, right?
like a whole
So
little world within that cell.
it's like a little microcosm in there, and it has all this stuff going on, and there's so much activity
Mhm.
in, out, cleansing, rebuilding, doing all of this stuff, right?
Yep.
And we don't think about that particular cell, but you take all the cells in your body that are all in motion, they're all refining and doing. That is actually pretty close to the level of activity that's happening within your being. Micro is the macro, okay? So it is a lot going on everywhere all the time, right?
In fact, I have to add this because, and I laugh about it, but it could potentially be real. You know how you just said the micro is the macro, and
Mm-hmm.
you're anyway. They've always said to me, or no, the saying that I received once. This I'm trying to remember if this is before my awakening was. I had this metaphor of the snow globe. You know those little snow globes that yeah they said basically. I was thinking, what if we're just in someone else's snow globe? Well, what if, and I know this gets trippy, but what if we're just a cell? The whole schmeal, the whole collective, all of Earth is a cell living within a cell, within a cell, within a cell, within a larger organism, within, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that gets pretty trippy to think about that, but it also kind of makes sense. Like, do we really know what's living at the level of what you just said of a cell? Because again, the cell replicates itself to create us, right? What are we? It can get very so I want to share that again because I think that's a really interesting thought.
It is. It's
A little
there's a lot of correlation with that idea. But it's, you can think about, even if you were wanting to focus into the perspective of one cell,
Mhm.
you can. And if you wanted to focus into the perspective of the whole body with all the cells, you could do that too, because even in the smallest cell to the total being, you're all in unified consciousness.
Yeah,
So
right.
as you feel comfortable being different parts or seeing from different angles, you can expand to see from the level of different consciousness, from being different perspectives of that entire being, right?
Which would go to say then, if you expand that out further per what I was saying,
yeah,
the larger collective, I mean, because it goes, to me, it goes without saying that if we're saying that, right, the individual cell to the body, to any part of your consciousness, we're part of a larger consciousness, so
yes,
that we could connect into the larger consciousness out, I'll just say outside of ourselves, right? Which, where isn't that infinite? Is that infinite?
It is infinite, and it's not really, that's the funny thing. I was just having a similar conversation with this when we were discussing things or concepts or ideas about, somebody's passing away, and then they would upload their consciousness into something where it save it, so then they could, like in some kind of futuristic or whatever, scenarios, they could maybe use it in a clone, so they could continue being themselves as they like to be, or apparently, But I was saying, you think about consciousness. Consciousness isn't something that comes in and gets trapped in your body.
No.
When you're in a body that's dynamic, like a source body, like we're in here, you are a dynamically flowing, and the consciousness that you perceive to be yours might feel like yours because you've got some other things built into you, like a human construct, right? That you can modify for different levels of things if you want to. But consciousness itself is everywhere. It's in everything. It's a unified field of all around you, everywhere. It's not trapped in your body. So you have the potential, by tuning your instrument, your body, to be open and hearing and able to be in the field of all kinds of different consciousness, because it's a unified field. It's massive. It's infinite.
And that's the thing, is humans have never understood that. So we think we were just us. We don't even really know anything as an average human about consciousness. We just think we're alive and walking as human. When we connect into what you just said and realize that we're part of a larger consciousness, that's when all that magic can happen. That's when you can make all those connections. That's when when your consciousness becomes consciously aware, right? You're part of something larger. I mean, so much can start to happen when you realize what you just said as a human.
Yes. And consciousness doesn't have to necessarily, this is another thing about it. There's consciousness, and then there's conscious awareness. Okay. So there is also, so there's also pure consciousness that doesn't necessarily have anything going on that we would pick up on in a mental process. It could be a complete rest being consciousness, right?
I'm at
so conscious awareness is like almost a little tweak on different tweaks. Like there's different there's different facets, or I shouldn't say facets. There's dimensional levels that hold pure consciousness.
Yes, and what I should have said,
that's there.
Yeah, you just corrected me. What I should have said is, it's when we as a human have conscious awareness of our consciousness and how big it is and what we can connect into. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, because there are, and we've tapped into a few of them. Remember, we were kind of going around, we were kind of being brought into one, and your mind just stops. It's not even, you're aware of yourself. It's almost even a part of awareness. You're not even trying to be aware, but you're just conscious.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. So yeah, it's really interesting. You can be into these really, so you say like some people, like gurus or whatever, they're just in the Zen all the time.
Yes.
Because they've chosen to tune to a consciousness that allows for them to be at rest or at peace.
Yes. And I think this is real interesting, because we didn't have a clue what we were going to talk about today. And somehow this pops up, right?
Yeah.
This is what's starting to happen to people right now. I'm noticing myself. I'm talking to a couple other people as well they just said, floating in and out of your own consciousness, like in a big way lately, trying to remember the example that somebody gave me literally today, like of being fully unaware, like almost as though they've gone to another place. And I know this happens on occasion, but it's becoming much more extreme for a period of time, but they're living their human life, and all of a sudden, not just driving the car, to a certain place, and you're like, how did I get there? This is happening as you're going about your day, and you're actually performing the human journey, right?
Yeah.
But you all of a sudden have lost track of like the last, 10, 15 minutes.
Yes.
I'm not kidding you. I've had a couple situations in the last month where I know I traveled, I went somewhere else because I I was completely thinking of something else. I was somewhere else thinking about, I don't even remember what it was, but I was there. I was there, but it was clearer in my mind than it would have been before my awakening or the ascension journey or anything like that, right? So it was as though I was there, but I was still here in this human 3D form. I kind of feel like this is the leading edge, what I'm talking about here, of what we talked about with the time travel. We talked about experiencing other consciousnesses, of being able to actually be in this 3D body, but at the same time going about your day, but you're actually experiencing another world, like jumping in for a bit to do something. I wish I could remember the example I had. It was profound. It was like I did something while I was there, and then I came back, but I was still doing the things around my house. I can't remember what it was.
It's like being multi-focused and still running process. Like it's not like you are going to hurt yourself in one, because you can't focus in both, but you're more focused maybe in one with your conscious. Now, our memory too, it'll start to change. I've noticed mine. With the body, your body will adjust to your multidimensionality and your comfort with it. Sometimes I'm trying to push mine to do more, because I start remembering stuff that I can do, and I can do, other places. But I know that, like, there's a way that I see sometimes where it's almost like I am aware of all the different options where I'm operating. And I can kind of almost just focus to one and step forward, and I'm in it. And it doesn't even, there's nothing to it. It's just like around me and like pictures almost. And I know where they are, and I can kind of just go wherever. And that's how I move in one form of less veil of my multidimensional being. And I was sitting there remembering, I'm like, how hard would it be to get this here right now? Because I would like to be able to be doing that, including this one, right? And so my mind is kind of trying, it's not really my mind, but it's the physical vessel, I think, is what has to adapt. And our vessel's pretty amazing. It can adapt to this stuff as we remember it, right?
In fact, I just thought of my example, and I think this is going to give a really good example of what we're talking about. So I was planning this vacation that I'm going on the 9th through the 19th with my mom. We're going up to International Falls, Minnesota. We're going to do Northern Shore of Minnesota, and we're going to go to the UP. But we're driving, doing all this thing. So I had to figure out 9 days of hotel, travel, like how many hours do we want to drive, how many places, that whole thing, right? As I'm doing this, and I'm used to doing this is what we do. I spent an evening working the first part of it, and I went to bed. I spent the next morning working the next part of it, finished it up. I came out of that kind of at 11 in the morning, and I was done. But when I got done, I didn't feel like I normally felt when I plan a trip. And I said this to somebody, I already went on my vacation. I literally, oh God, I have chills.
Oh God, you did quantum.
I did a quantum thing, and I felt, in fact, the way I knew this is, I didn't come out at 11 o'clock and get everything done and write my mom and say I'm done, and felt normal like Carolyn. I didn't. I felt like I was in some other dimension or time warp situation. It took me till the next day to come back to feeling like me again. I was on that trip. I saw it. I felt it. I saw the Northern Lights. I did everything because I had to plan every single day, but not with our activities, of course, but like the hotel and how far we were going to drive. I saw it in my mind's eye. I was experiencing it.
You were planning it, creating it, and experiencing it all at the same time, right there.
Yeah. And
so now it's going to unfold in linearity for you, so you can have a linear experience of the very thing you just did. Yes. Totally agree with that.
Exactly. It's the whole manifestation of it. But what got me realizing it, this is the first time it's happened where I came out of it and I was somewhere else.
Yes.
I was somewhere else for I didn't really come back right away. I had to gradually move back into this current state that I'm in.
Yeah. Well, you remember when we were talking about time and how time could be different? We were trying to imagine like maybe different perspectives of looking at time. And we were saying that time really, you wouldn't conform to time as much as time would conform to you. So it would be available to you in any amount that you needed to have an experience, but it wouldn't necessarily preclude you from having an experience at the same time. Maybe, it didn't matter. It would be, if you needed 6 hours to do that, you would have 6 hours to do that in a no time kind of environment. Even if you had to meet somebody in a half an hour for coffee, it wouldn't matter, right?
Right.
So it's more of it's for you more than it is for you watching a clock, knowing you have so much time to do stuff. Mm-hmm. And that is kind of, I believe, kind of the experience that you just had there, where it's really overlapping. And we tend to, like, some of my experiences here and some of the things that I've been doing that have more of a galactic or other dimensional feel, I've come to find out later, or realize later, that all of that was occurring at the same time. And I was actually all three of the people that were talking to each other in that experience, but I had each one of them separately in a linear fashion, even though I'm like, I have had this conversation before, but I was you, right? And so it was happening in a kind of in a row. First I was them, then I was them, then I was them. And I thought, why is this happening? And I realized it was all happening at the same time, but I was having it like that because of the time construct that's in here, right? Where I was experiencing it from. So it happens all at once. Now, remember when they told us during the first create and then come back in, everything happened in that moment, right? So these are all of those moments in linear fashion. Yes. That could be.
Oh my God, they're showing this. You're showing it all lines up for it. Yes. You just nailed it. They also said to me, let's see if I can read this. When you are in flow, time doesn't matter, or so I'm going to try to explain what they're showing me. And they're talking about the ancients. This is really hard. Okay. So basically when you think about time, you think, well, if you didn't have time, how would you meet so-and-so at such and such, or get this accomplished, blah, blah, blah. What they're talking about is what used to happen is when you were in flow and you let the universe guide you, you're in flow, right? You just go to where you need to go. And of course, we didn't have this modern age like this where, it was so focused on achievement, right? And goals. And anyway, you would flow where you were meant to flow. It kind of looked the same, but you would connect with the people you were meant to connect with because you were in flow, because everybody was in flow. Does that make sense to you, what I'm talking about?
Yes,
I'm trying to explain this. And so what would happen is there was no linearity. There was only now. There was you flow into the next thing you were meant to flow into. And it wasn't about, how do I want to say, like this constructed day. Like, they just said artificially constructed.
Yes, that's right.
We're going back to this. We're going to go back to this. It's going to, well, and we all are starting to see little pieces of how time has totally shifted and changed. For example, I just got done saying, summer felt like it was really nice and long, but within the individual days, they went so fast. So how could summer be nice and long when the individual days went so fast and all of a sudden another week was gone? Well, then all of a sudden what shifted for me was August. Like I blinked my eyes and August is gone. I'm like, well, I just got done saying summer was long. No, now this has changed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's wild. It's really so dynamic, and there's so much. It's really amazing. Seriously, it does not matter. It's hard to necessarily try to understand it if you're still very schedule oriented, because it can be trippy, right? But when you kind of can sit back and watch it and have it not affect you that much, there's so much going on everywhere, right? And in time, my son, he's agreeing what he's doing. I guess so. Yeah,
totally agreeing. I was talking about how time used to be, and we're moving back into that where it's only, we're starting to notice how odd time is, but we're moving back. Well, what I was going to say, maybe they'll spark you, that I have the thought of that I now remember again, was that spiritual awakening journey is key to this. Okay. Because we start, and a lot of people they said are having this start to happen where we get shifted into, oh, they just said the gear of flow, because we understand how important flow is and what we start doing. So we start moving the boulders and the pebbles aside in the stream that we're traveling down. That's always the metaphor they use, right? So as you start doing that, you allow flow to open up, and they're talking about, so then you just get guided to where you go. But the awakening journey is key, because it's the process of doing the clearing we do, doing the healing work, doing the recognition, doing the things that don't serve us. That whole process that naturally starts to happen opens up flow, which opens us up to this idea of time changing. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
So it's kind of like a layered approach.
Yes.
Like you can't, somebody, in the thick of 3D, they're not experiencing this. I mean, we're still here on Earth. We're not going anywhere, right? We're just shifting the way we, energetically live in this body, and vibrationally live in this body, and then we have different experiences as a result of that. So this is part of how that happens.
Two of the things that you said, like the last time I mentioned that I've been, going in your time feels funny, but I feel like just millions of years of my being and my knowing of other things around, and just kind of feeling where I've been and what I've done.
Yeah,
right?
You really do.
It really came in big time, and I can feel it there, even though I might not be able to articulate it all at once. It's there, right? So that is very similar to what you were talking about there. And then also what you were saying earlier about having your vacation the way you planned it. That really ties into the concept and the idea that what you just said is like, we're not going anywhere. We're, it's not like, it is our way of creating and manifesting, right?
Yes.
We are creating and manifesting things. And now, I'm excited, kind of antsy, wanting to move forward with the way I know that it happens. And so I'm I know that how easy it can be actually, and how we move through things very easy, very fluid, like different experiences. And by being in that moment, like when you planned your vacation, you experienced your vacation, all of that was kind of happening at one time, but it's going to unfold for you in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
Now it's already been created, right?
They just gave me a metaphor to that. Can I share it?
Yes.
They just gave me a metaphor. So they said, think of the spiral, how we talked about things are in linear fashion. They're in a spiral. All these things, all the potentials are out there. And basically what you're doing is you're going grocery shopping, right? So you're picking and choosing what you want your experience to be like. I did in my planning, right? And then what they're showing is, as you pick from that spiral of all the things in the infinite universe that you want to, have in that little plan of yours, then when you do it, it lines up. They're saying they're showing it all coming in, lining up in linear fashion, because that's your manifestation. So that's the behind the scenes, how the manifestation plays out. So there's all the possibilities of, we're just going to use my trip, for example, all the possibilities that could potentially happen in this trip of things we could do, right? Which kind of probably are infinite too. But because I had that visualization, that's going to all line up. My visual of when I'm trying to figure out where we were going to stay in the UP is, we ended up in a place that I didn't know was going to be one of the top places in the country to see the Northern Lights, which is a bucket list thing for me. Well, this is interesting. It's a bucket list thing for me. So I saw us, after I learned that, I was like, okay, I see me with my big flashlight. I see us with our lawn chairs, and we have a beach across from us. We're going to be sitting there watching the Northern Lights come in. And I'm like, I was there, right? Yes. And so I guess if I don't experience it in linear fashion in this human journey, I already did experience it.
You probably experience it in multiple ways. And then as you go through it, you probably add richness to it in other ways too. So like I said, it's like you're refining and there's more ways to experience it, that you're probably having all of those, right? You're having like the whole thing from every perspective during it, right? Does that make sense?
Oh my God. Yes, because this is really, see, and the thing is, what we're talking, we're ultimately talking about manifesting our journey. I know manifesting kind of is an overused term, but it makes sense. So why not use it, right? But this is what we do every darn day, right? And so this, in the Aquarian age energies, they have said this to me, and we're being able to see this more and more in 2022 pretty fast, actually, of how these things that we wish to have in our journey are starting to line up. And it still takes a little time to man up fast, right? To get things lined up in what we're still, that three or this human world, because we still have that heavier energy that we're in, but it lines up for us then in our manifestation. We're starting to see it happen faster and faster. And as we continue to raise in vibration, it is a faster manifestation for us, particularly the energies we're in now. We're not in Pisces anymore because that's that old, heavy stuff. But now here we are, it's just, we're moving forward in creation, creativity. And creativity.
We're balancing a lot too. We're becoming better at balancing. I think with balancing, it does allow for more options.
Yes.
So there's a lot of balancing going on with different energies, more energies coming in for just being, I shouldn't say coming in, but we're opening up to some more energies.
Very much.
So that we can have these kinds of experiences where it's not necessarily like, what does all this mean? Which I was so much like that. And when anything, a message or anything, I wanted to understand what it meant. And now I think, I had this thing happen to me and I may not know what it means, but, for 6 months from now.
Yes.
But it doesn't really matter because it was just, everything tends to tie back together. Recently, it's been interesting. I've been having conversations that are after the event, like that are happening in other multidimensional realms. I'm having a conversation or an interlude with some energies, different entities, whatever, different facets of myself probably, that in like 3 days down the road, I will then have the conversation or experience that's just preceding that.
Yes.
And I remember this must be what happened right before I had that conversation. So I already know what's going on when I come into the other one. It's almost like prep for this one, right?
No, I get it.
It's wild. So it's just really about how everything kind of just slides and moves. And I don't know exactly why I'm doing that, but I can see how there's so much going. There's so many options about how you can really do whatever you want.
And we're just realizing that, yes.
And you really can flourish in any particular way that you want to, because there isn't a lot that can't be done. So it just, as you develop you develop yourself,
yes,
you can make things happen in ways. Sometimes it probably happens naturally, but you can be, like we've always said, more actively participating in what you want to happen rather than trying to self-adjust and maybe getting something you don't necessarily love, right?
Yep, exactly. It's interesting. I have some of this, it's kind of hard to describe as similar experiences to you, but mine more is what I've noticed in August, particularly in the last couple of weeks, is that I don't know how to, it's like a montage of, I don't want to say this, a montage of other places, experiences, worlds, or times in the world, maybe other locations are showing up where I'm getting a kind of a feel like I'm there, and like something may spark that. Okay, like maybe I'll be listening to a song and I'll think a thing and then it takes me into this place, but this is happening all while I'm doing other things, and then a new thing comes in sparked by something else or sparked by a thought I had, but it becomes an actual they're trying to say like a not a, how the manger scenes are like their own little what are those called when you used to create those things? The dioramas.
Diorama. Let's say collage. Diorama.
It's like your own diorama. Okay, right? Like a diorama is like kind of real. It feels kind of real, right? When you create those. Yeah. So that's what they're saying. I'm like jumping into these dioramas of kinds of places I've been or have been, but they show up and then they go, and then the next one comes in, and I'm having certain times that this is happening. It's almost like they just said the word multi-locating. I'm
You're multi-locating. Yes.
Across they just said across time and space. Oh my gosh,
right.
Locating time and space.
And different time. That's why time feels
timelines. What?
Yes, and that's why time feels different, because time, you're multi-locating all of those locations are not necessarily within the same time structure as this one.
No.
So you can feel like you're in different sets of time because you're multi-locating, which you've always done, by the way, but you're doing it now with more of a thinner veil. And so you are experiencing more of your unpartitioned being.
Yes.
That way, it now feels like maybe something that you might tap into in dream state and maybe remember here.
Right.
It feels like those are not necessarily so far away and they are occurring. And that's why time, what we might see as a time slippage is just because there are different formats of time. There's time, space, there's space, time, there's no time.
Yes.
Right. There's a lot of different ways.
Yes. To really simplify this, what they're showing, because they love to give metaphors, right? They're showing the fog lifting. Okay. So there's fog over all of this before, right? But now the fog's lifting and we're starting to be able to realize that, oh, it's all there. I can just go over here, right? And experience this, kind of like what's been happening with me on occasion. And so they're saying the fog is lifting, that, like, basically, again, the veil kind of idea.
Yes.
I think everybody's going to start having more of this, like blips on the screen, this kind of thing, like little things like I've been talking about, you've been experiencing. This is so fascinating.
I wanted to bring this in. I know we don't need to talk about it for a long time just because I have a son who's on the spectrum, but a lot of those misunderstand or behaviors or, most parents or people around kids on the spectrum or that have Asperger's or even ADHD, they know that their child is brilliant.
Yeah. Right.
They're just not conforming necessarily to the way that we measure certain things like comprehension, cognition, that type of thing. It's because they don't have rigid time constructs. It's one of the constructs that are, they don't have several different rigid constructs that we are actually limiting our consciousness by being susceptible to hear. Yes. So they don't necessarily have those, and so their behavior looks different.
And you know what they just said? They just, sorry, I'm good. I interrupted you, but they just said this allows them to explore other worlds like, at will, literally at will, like, because, and I think you know this about your son, I think you've said this, is that you know that he's out there all the time.
He's all over the place, yes.
Yes. This allows them to explore other worlds at will.
Yes. And so he's got, he sees things very differently. He's in other, so sometimes I can even seem a bit confused about this. Like, why are you doing this? Right.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. Right.
Yes.
So they don't necessarily want to get in and participate totally here because they're like, this is just like a dot right there for all this other stuff that I get to do or I can do. And kind of wondering why we would choose to do this. Right.
Exactly.
So, but that's just, something to think about with kids that my son used to tell me, don't worry about me, because he'd feel my worry. Don't worry about me. He said it's unnecessary. It's not, so it's true, because you ever tap into their energy, you start to feel a little bit like this is like, whoa, but this is exactly the way his kind of energetic is very much out of time.
They just said they're here to show the way.
Yeah.
They're here to show the way. And remember, we've talked about this before, where we're just not, they're here to show the way, and we've just got to make the connection and to understand it in the way that they're showing us.
Yeah. And sometimes it's funny because I look at my son like, okay, so he's here sometimes and he gets a little bit like, what are you doing? And I don't necessarily know how much they're here to teach necessarily, like, oh, this is how you do it.
No.
But I do believe that when you bring in a frequency or maybe a, how they call some of these they're busters. They're like system busters.
Yes.
Their energetic is set up to go in and break a system, right?
Yes.
They come in with an energy. I'm going to go there, have it built into my energy, or just be myself in this way and not conform to that. And just by having that there, it's going to break these other ones down, where others that have the same ability could do it if they wanted to, right? Could expand and do it if they wanted to.
What they are saying to me, per what you just said, is because you're looking at it from how they come in. But if we can, as humans, really start to delve into the understanding like you have of those who have autism, we can learn from them, right? Like we can learn
Yes.
so much about consciousness from
Oh,
them.
totally. Yeah.
And but it's got
And
to
they
be
may not be able to explain it to
No.
us like this is how you do it from where you are to where I am, because they don't necessarily understand us either. But the energetic of it is very important to I'm finding this so much more. A lot of us who find somebody who is consciously open, we're like, oh my God, I love what they're doing. I love the way I feel and the energy. We tend to think we need to go there where we don't remember everything is here. It's all here in ours. If we like what we see in another, we just command our own to do it and we use ours to do it. We don't ever say, oh, they're the way through. I'm going, like some of the religious or guru dogmas, we think we need to be attached to this guy to make sure that we're in that energy doing this thing. It's not. No. He's just providing something that we've got in our own that we need to say, I like that. I want that here. Let's do that here. And I'm still staying in mine. Because you are your own. You always are your own way. Through you, in you, this is yours. It's not into another, right? And so I think that a lot of these kids, they're bringing these, we're noticing them just like Buddha, just like Krishna, just like a lot of these, they had this thing about them, but it wasn't so you could attach to them and be, it was so you could, so you could realize that's something that you would like for yourself. You realize you want for yourself and allow it for you.
Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this today. If you want to work with me, check out purplerainhealing.com, where you can see all of my services of channeling, where I work very closely with you, one-on-one, helping you along your journey. Whether you want a short session with me to be able to update, because you've worked with me before, I do offer 15-minute updates for established clients, but I also offer one-on-one mentoring, regular sessions with you where I help you and assist you in your awakening and ascension and life journey, where I channel information for you and we go back and forth and talk about your journey and the things you want to know about and helping you unravel what's going on in your own life. And what we do is we help you understand it from a spiritual perspective. So much happens in our human journey that we're just like, oh my gosh, what is this thing? Why did I choose this? Why am I involved in this? What will happen is we'll be able to help you understand relationships and experiences, why you're at where you are today, past, present, and potential future. So with that, check out my services, purplerainhealing.com, distance energy healing, and all kinds of channeled services for your assistance in your awakening, ascension, and life journey. So with that today, I hope you've enjoyed this message. Please like, share, and subscribe. That helps me get my messages out to more people who can benefit from this in the collective. I will see you in the next video.